Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. In recent weeks I've been painting the minis from the Warhammer Quest Darkwater set, showing how to paint them quickly as there are a lot of minis to get through without sacrificing quality. From the Crankerborn to Molgoth the Cleaver, these minis are fantastic, and this week I'm going to show you how to paint possibly the quickest miniature I've ever painted. It was surprising just how quick it was. The Pestigors are great looking models, bringing beastmen to the forces of Nurgle, and this week I show how to paint these great looking models really quickly but with a great finished result. The first thing I've done is prime the mini black and apply the zenethol undershade as I've done to the previous miniatures. This undershading is the secret to this paint scheme, as it adds shadows and highlights which will come out once the paint is applied. First, with Crusader Skin Speed Paint, I'm painting all of the skin on the model. I'm catching the ears and the snout showing from under the hood, as well as the arms, chest and legs. Different models have different bits of skin showing, but make sure you catch any skin on the models. This Crusader Skin Speed Paint gives a really nice effect over the zenethol. The shadows will be nice and dark, and there should be a nice transition to the lighter raised areas. As always, I'm being careful to only paint the skin, and avoiding accidentally painting over any other areas, especially as it would be hard to tidy up the zenethol undershading if it's accidentally painted over. Now the skin is painted, next I'm going to paint the wood. For this I'm using dark wood, and I'm painting any parts of wood on the weapon. And the back of the shield. Dark wood gives a really nice wood effect, especially over the undershading, bringing out the wood grain effect in a single coat. The shield also has some wood showing under the torn bits of fabric, so I'm carefully picking out any exposed wood, but making sure to avoid the fabric on the shield. You can see how the wood effect looks really good on this mini. Now with Desolate Brown, I'm going to paint any strapping. The strapping on the weapons looks really good with this colour. It gives a great nurgly green, and once the other areas are painted, will really stand out. I'm also painting any straps or belts on the model, being careful around the skin and other areas, but making sure I catch them all with some Desolate Brown. I'm also painting the leather pouch on the model as well as any other bags or rope details. With the Desolate Brown painted, the model is starting to get that Nurgle look. And with Forest Green, I'm going to really make this mini look like a follower of Grandfather Nurgle. I'm painting all of the fabric on the beastmen. I'm painting the hood, being careful around the skin, and on this one the details over the eyes as well as the horn. Forest Green is going to give a nice light green colour to all of the fabric, but because of the undershading, the shadows will really stand out and the highlights won't be too bright because it will be a smooth transition between all of the shades, as the undershading will still show through slightly. I'm also painting the fabric hanging from his waist. Speed paints are great for fabric. Some people struggle to highlight fabric, but these speed paints will give a good looking cloth effect with just a single coat. I'm also catching the fabric on the shield as well, being careful to avoid painting over the wood and the detailing in the middle of the shield, which I'll be painting later. With that green applied, the model is really starting to look like a Pestigor. Now with Warp Lightning Speed Paint, I'm going to paint the armour. This shoulder pad has some skull details, which I'm going to paint later, but I'm catching all of the flatter areas with some Warp Lightning, so it'll have a nice rich colour. Using Warp Lightning will also tie this model into Molgoth and give a uniformed look across the set. With the shoulder pad painted, next I'm going to paint the skulls. For this I'm using Pallid Bone, and I'm painting the skulls hanging from the belt of the Pestigor. And there's a skull on the base as well, which I'm catching with some Pallid Bone. If you're enjoying the video, please press like If you want more videos, press the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. And if you'd like to support the channel, please become a member by pressing the join button down below or joining me over on Patreon. With the skulls painted, next up I'm going to paint the fur. And for this I'm using Grim Black. I'm painting all the areas of fur. Some models have fur on their chins, so make sure you check each one. The black gives a really nice fur effect over the undershade, but of course you could mix up the fur colours to add more variation across your Pestigors. I'm being very careful with this paint, as it will be hard to tidy up and paint over the black, so I'm keeping the black under control and catching all of the areas of fur with some Grim Black. With the fur painted, the model's really coming together. Now with Skeleton Horde Contrast paint, I'm going to paint the horn and the hooves. I'm just catching these areas with a layer of Skeleton Horde. Paint gives a really nice colour for these areas. It's a different shade of bone colour than I applied to the skulls, so it'll give a nice different effect. I'm also catching the teeth as well, giving them a dark, dirty look. With the Skeleton Horde applied, next I'm going to paint the boils on the skin. And for this, I'm using Murder Scene. I'm picking out all of the boils that are on the skin to the Pestigor. This paint gives a nice sore look to any boils, which really adds to that Nurgle look, giving the impression of sore, painful boils growing on the skin. And with the boils painted, I'm moving on to the metallics. So with Broadsword Silver, I'm painting the head to the axe. This speed paint is really good at painting metal, gives good coverage, which some metallics struggle with, and works well with the undershading to add a subtle highlight as well as some shading. I'm also painting the cowbell on this model. This could be painted gold, but I've gone for a silver bell on this one. And I'm carefully painting the rim to the shield. I'm being extra careful here to not paint over the fabric, and just making sure I catch the metal with some Broadsword Silver. With the steel painted, now I'm going to move on to the gold. I'm using Hoplite Gold for this. I'm painting all of the trinkets on the model. As a Chaos model, there are quite a few trinkets to pick out, so I'm making sure I catch all of them with some Hoplite Gold. I'm also making sure to paint over these details over the eyes. And I'm also painting the details on the shoulder pad and the detail on the shield with gold as well. If there are any other small trinkets on the mini, I'll be catching these with some Hoplite Gold too. With the gold painted, you could leave the mini here, but there are a few more things I'm going to add to really make this mini pop. First, with Reichland Flesh Shade, I'm shading all of the gold. The Hoplite Gold is a bit too bright for a Chaos mini, so by applying a shade of Reichland Flesh Shade, it knocks it back a bit, and also gives the gold a really deep, rich colour. I don't want this shade to pull too heavily, and if I do notice it pulling, I'll wick any extra shade away with a dry brush. Once that shade has dried, you can see how it's given a nice deep colour to the gold. Now with Nailac Oxide, I'm going to add some verdigris. I'm applying small spots of Nailac Oxide onto the areas I painted gold. This will add a bit of weathering to these areas and make the model look more dirty and grimy. As always with weathering, less is more when it comes to this. Start off by applying a few small areas, and if you think it needs a bit more, it's a lot easier to add more paint than it is to take it away. I'm adding this to the edges of gold areas and into recesses or places that water and dirt would collect, and just lightly applying small spots of Nailac Oxide. With the verdigris added, there's one final bit of weathering to apply, and for this I'm using Dirty Down Rust. I'm applying some rust to the areas I paint with Broadsword Silver. This paint gives a great looking rust effect and will really make these details look grimy and like they haven't been looked after properly. A great look for any Nurgle model. And with the rust applied, that is how to paint a Pestigor for Warhammer Quest Darkwater. This model really didn't take long to paint at all. This scheme is really quick and simple, but gives a great looking result at the end. Let me know in the comments down below, are you enjoying Darkwater? And what models would you like to see me paint next? any particular models, or maybe even one of the heroes from the set. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy painting!